Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. Supposedly we're live. I just found out that we are live on Twitter. I'm Jarod Dienda, Electrify Expo podcast. Matt Teskey. Matt, why are you giggling? Why are you cackling?
Hey, I'm jet lagged too. I was in Germany as well,
Oh my
so Craig and I
gosh.
have a lot in common.
Okay. Well, this is totes adorbs. I love this. I think it's great. And Matt, we have a special guest here who absolutely affected some people's childhoods, their adulthood. And this gentleman, so Matt, you just came from Germany. This gentleman just came from Germany, but he has infected our brains with some vehicles some people love, some people hate,
Right.
but you can't deny the influence of these vehicles. And he's an all-around automotive guy, and I've known this guy since the late 90s. Mr. Craig Lieberman. Craig Lieberman contributed to the vehicle curation of Fast and Furious, all the films, and is all around a car guy. But I want to get kind of polarizing because he's not a big EV fan, and that's kind of why I wanted to throw him into the ringer here. And I'm really excited about it. I was just looking at your Instagram, Craig, and just looking at it, and you said Vin Diesel. You have a photo of the classic, right? Dom Toretto,
Right.
and then you have Vin Electric, and it's kind of an emaciated. It looks like almost like a Mark Wahlberg in The Sixth Sense.
Somebody, I think my son sent that to me, and so I just passed it along.
Well,
But
all joking aside, Craig, thank you so much for being here. I know you are jet lagged. What's keeping you busy these days, man?
well, I run a small agency doing Shopify website, pay per click, paid social, organic social. So I have about a dozen clients, and then for fun, I've got a relationship with a company called Chrome Cars in Germany, and they buy a lot of movie crews, and so we've developed a relationship. And they bring me out when there's a big uh, car show, and I go there and tell the stories. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm signing on autographs on paper, pictures of the cars.
I mean,
It's the weirdest.
is it weird? Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's
like I
like
said,
I'm
is it weird?
technical advisor. I tell them what not to do, what you should do. Yes, sometimes. No, sometimes. All that kind
Oh,
of
come
stuff.
on, Craig. You were starting the races at Race Wars. Come on. Come
There
on.
we go.
Well, I had to get on the casting couch to get that role.
Oh boy, it's a family show. It's a family show, Craig. And again, Fast and Furious. I'll again, we're here talking about EV. We're here talking about electric. Matt, I know this movie affected your life. People ask me, "What's your favorite?" Honestly, gun to head, none of them. I'm not a big Fast and Furious guy because hear me out. Because they made the movie about what we were doing, right?
Right.
So if you're in it, right, and I grew up street racing in San Diego, so here they're taking my lifestyle, which I've been blessed to absolutely monetize and to be part of still 20 plus years later, right? Going to Tokyo Auto Salon in 99 and all these things. And we talked about this kind of with Nads, our
Yeah.
last episode, Matt, together, and I love it. But it's like, really, like kind of two bottles, right? Like, but the beauty of it is it lives in perpetuity, right, Craig? I mean, this is
It
just
does.
so iconic.
I everywhere I go around the world, it's the same thing. You got me into cars, and I said, "No, I didn't. Don't blame that stuff on me." It's you saw something that was cool on screen, which is the same way I got involved. I watched Batman when I was a little boy, and I said, every car I'm going to have from now, when I grow up, I'm just going to have the buttons on the steering wheels. And if you see project cars, you can see they're way overdone, a lot of buttons and everything. But I'm living the dream.
Yeah, and we're in it, Matt. We're in his dream right now.
Well, it's the fun part about all this is so I think Craig, the first time that you and I actually met was when I was interning at like Sport Compact Car Magazine or something. It was at Robert's old shop for Modern Image. Remember the strip mall one
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
day?
yeah.
Yeah, you were there with your Maxima, and I rolled in as an intern with like the Sport Compact Car Maxima or Turbo Maxima, and we sat there and talked Maximas for like I don't know half an hour, and afterwards I was just like, yeah, I was like I've heard his name before, and Robert's like, yeah, you don't like, dude, he just did all the like the Fast and Furious stuff. I was like, oh, And then after that, it's just like, and then it's again like this industry is so fun because so many of us have been doing this for so long, and we kind of keep weaving in and out of each other's
Right.
paths. And that's the fun part about what's happening, I think, with electrification is a lot of the people that made the tuner world what it is. I'm excited as hell to see everybody from that world start slowly finding their way into electrification. And whether again the performance aspect, we can discuss that all day long, but I still think at the end of the day, the enthusiast aspect is still going to be there, and we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of crossover in that way. And I think that's the fun part about what's happening on the EV side of it is that you have people that were building tuner cars, I mean, whatever junked out Civic you could find when you were a kid, but now they have real jobs with real money, and they're like, what do I build now? And all of a sudden they're building out some of these EVs that are expensive, and I think that's just pretty damn cool. So
So I was an RC car for a long time, so I know a lot about electric motors and that kind of stuff. And I've driven a Tesla, other Teslas, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not against EVs at
Uh,
all because they're faster than almost everything made by everybody anywhere.
all
yeah,
right,
And
thanks for joining us, Craig. That's
thanks for
all we
coming on,
needed.
man.
We just need
that's how
that
we know.
sound bite. You heard it here first from the car curator of Fast and Furious, faster than anything else out
I'll
there.
I'll
This
tell you
message
Boom.
brought to you by Craig Lieberman.
I'll tell you a funny story. 2 years ago, I was at Barrett Jackson, and I was interviewing the big captains of picture cars movies. A guy by the name Terry Leonard and Ted Mosier. Most of those guys have 50 movies to their credit. And I asked Terry Leonard, who was the stunt director on Too Fast, Too Furious. I said, "So let me ask you a question. EVs, these are coming on. They're going to be EVs Part the 10. What are you going to do for the sounds in the soundtrack for EV? Because a car going like a Jetson is like not very sexy. Okay."
Well,
He said, "Well, we're just going to dub in the sounds of V8s into it." And I said, "Oh my God,
oh
I think that's such a missed opportunity to
I
to
do."
really brand this kind of audio there.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I always go back and reference T-Pain creating the audio for Von Gittin Jr.'s Mach E1400. I saw
Mhm.
T-Pain perform at Grid Life this past week at Laguna Seca, which is an amazing experience. T-Pain, Nappy Boy, shout out to Hurt joining that camp. Big news. Hoonigan Wheel Pros has said, "Hey, we're a Hoonigan, by the way." Big news there. We'll get to that in a moment. But Craig, all joking aside, I came in here and you like I said, played such a major role in our childhood. And I joke about none of them. Obviously, I love them. It's the movies played a massive role in my life. It's airplane talk, right? Like
Yeah.
when it made it easier to explain what we do and our scene.
oh
Is it
yeah,
kind of like Fast and Furious? It's like, yeah, but not really, especially drifting, right? When Tokyo Drift came out. Oh, yeah, that drifting stuff. I'm like, not exactly. Like the RX-8 scene pains me, just her driving through oh my gosh. But
Advisor.
advisor.
I
Advisor.
love it.
They don't always take the advising, right?
Right.
Is that
Like
the point?
you're handling a patient who's got mental problems, and you say, "Okay, don't go climb on a clock tower and start shooting people," but he does it anyway. So you can't
Right.
put the psychiatrist right.
Jeez. All right. Hey, I got a segue here before I forget. Sung Kang, it was announced that he's going to direct Initial D, the movie.
Yes.
How cool is that? And look at that spinoff. It's kind of like the Statham thing, right? And where they're going at and Shaw and all that. And it's cool. How rad is that? Are you
I
going to
think
work on
it's
that
great.
film?
Yeah, I went to do a podcast with him about 9 months ago, and we talked for 3.5 hours. So he's clearly into it, but the irony is he doesn't like to go walk around in car shows for 5 hours. That's not his jam. He wants to be under the hood and
Yeah,
creating it. So that's
Hmm.
it. So I hope it's going to be does better with this movie than that horror movie he did, which was low budget and it was very difficult. And horror is a hard genre to get into it anyway to really do it right. But no, he's a cool guy, and he would be the natural person because most of the people who are working in the movies as actors are fake car people.
sure.
Right.
They're fake. They tolerate well, Tyrese to an extent, Vin Diesel to an extent, and that pretty Neil Mauritius, who is a producer, he's a big car guy. But other than that, not so much.
Matt, we are bringing you in here because again, you're just such a book of knowledge when it comes to EV and kind of the structure of it, obviously charge way and what you do, and just really diving into this. Do you have any questions for Craig in regards to kind of his relationship with EV and what's going on and the whole space, like maybe in the movie world and all that as well?
Oh, I think, well, it's funny because I took some time to really kind of catch up on, well, Craig's very, again, Craig, you might not think this, but you are very out in the discussion about this all the time. And I think the way that you've been involved on what people get eyeballs on when it comes to cars in general
Mhm.
for the last, 20 years plays a role in what that means, the role that you can play when it comes to EVs as well. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate a lot of, again, the Jessen reference. I completely understand that there's some things about what happens in the EV world that there are certain people that go, yeah, that's not for me yet. But I think I'm curious because is it really mostly just that it's like the five senses type thing? It's like when it comes to a combustion car, whether we're talking a tuner car or a V8 or whatever you want to look at, you are viscerally like responding to it differently, right? It's like you feel it, you hear it, you smell it. There's all these different things that go along with being an automotive enthusiast. In the EV world, there are elements of that that are being removed from a senses perspective. I mean,
Right.
you pop the hood, you just
Yeah.
don't see the art the same way as you do when you pop the hood on older cars, right? And then you
Right.
don't hear and smell it. I mean, from your perspective, is that really just the pain point? It's like that like personal separation from it, or I mean, I'm not even getting to the driving part
Yeah.
yet. So
So that's a good thing. I have this discussion with a lot of people. We gotta really realize that we are in the early stages, right? So back in the 1920s, there was nothing looking under the hood. It was a four banger, nothing cool and all the good. It'll come. It'll come in some kind of fusion, whatever, or badass generator, or whatever's under the hood. But what I think a lot of people are worried about is these artificial sounds to try to make them sound like a V8. There's this
yeah,
kid
I don't think that at all. Yeah,
cars company with his Tesla. He revs his motor up and it sounds like a V8. And
yeah,
people look at him like he could beat his wife. What did you do?
yeah. No,
So
I agree
big
with
thing.
that. I think it's like don't pretend to be something you're not. This is a different, this is an iteration of transportation. I think I would love to see if there would be a way to artistically take what is a frunk and convert it into something more impressive. I mean, some
Ooh.
of the Tesla guys is they will take their their airbag tanks and they will drop them in, and you see everything from like the gigantic battery. Haha, it's
Right?
cute. I think it's fun. It's
I
been
like
done
the
a lot.
Tapatio bottles. I think the hot sauce bottles are always
Actually,
a
that's my
favorite
thing.
of
Is
mine.
anything, yeah, anything else that isn't a battery is also cool
Now,
too.
Yeah.
But
remember your RC cars, you get a specialized battery, right? Maybe you could
Mhm.
start selling packs that look like nitrous bottles that'll give you super juice boost or something like that. That would be cool. But
I'd love
See,
to see someone do like a plexiglass frunk insert so you can actually see everything that's under the frunk. Now, and that's not for a Tesla only. A lot of these legacy brands, you pop the hood, it's just plastic. They haven't actually executed
yeah,
using that space differently. But I'm like, get rid of the plastic. Like,
yeah.
show me what you did with this electric motor. Really, I think there's
yeah, that's pretty
opportunity there
cool.
still.
Yeah, it's pretty
Well,
cool.
you see, I mean, Craig, okay, here we go. So another reference would be look at all these water-cooled computers, these supercomputers, these gaming.
Yeah,
Oh
You
yeah,
see the
exactly.
liquids and the lights, like,
Exactly.
dude, those things are optioned out. All right, so here we go. We're onto something here, right? This
Hmm.
is this we're in a spitball session. Everybody's watching. So
take
Everybody.
notes. Take
imagine,
notes.
right? Imagine applying that supercomputer or gaming computer aesthetic to these vehicles and mix in a little RC car, mix in a little creativity. Craig, I think Craig's going to the dealer later this afternoon. He's going to customize one for Fast and Furious 20. I saw him and I saw Dom in a Rascal. I saw the poster for
Yeah,
Fast XX,
yeah,
and Dom's in a Rascal, but he's going to go over to his Rivian or his Polestar or fill in the blank.
whatever.
That's very
Hmm.
jackass. So like Spike Jones and everything, like going down the hill in the Rascal, just like gives Vin just like the whole way down.
It's going to get better. My objection to an EVs is simply this: it's very expensive to get into them. The cheapest car is about $35,000, like a Bolt. And they're having class lot. What he claims giant lawsuits with that car, kind of stuff. Tesla's got quality is hit and miss, but it's the power generation that's going on. Half of this California is run by coal firing plants. So, and they're telling us to turn our air conditioners off in the summer because we don't have the electricity. What's going to happen? You put 13 million electric vehicles on the roads in California. This state is a big problem anyway. So we will
Well,
get
no,
there, but for right now, it's a problem.
I think energy production is something. I mean, this comes up a lot, and I think that this gets back to how you fill up your car. I
Right.
think that the opportunity for, well, number one is the communication of how energy works is something that just doesn't exist yet in the U.S. I mean, most people don't really understand how electricity works in general. But when the message that comes from the government in California is everybody shut off your AC, the power is getting, the grid's getting pushed to its limits. Well, it doesn't send the right message that you can also then have your transportation based on the same energy, right? And I think that there's opportunity. Good example is, I mean, I'm based up in Oregon now, and we added solar and home batteries to our house about 2 years ago, and we're 60% off grid here in Portland. I mean, it's pouring
Yeah.
rain today. And I look at that and I go, okay, anywhere where it's actually sunny, you can actually produce enough energy to offset so much. I think what happens often is there's almost this purity test that happens. Is this idea of you want me to switch to non-fossil fuel, then show me how it's not going to make my life a nightmare. Because I get this messaging when it's hot outside to shut off my AC, and you want me to power my car with the same energy. I don't trust you. And
Right.
I can't blame anybody for that skepticism. This is where I think people in political power need to have a better approach to how they message what we're doing with these advancements in technology, and also discuss how we can do a better job of helping people infuse different options into their life that may not be like flipping a switch from fossil fuel to renewables, but having some sort of balance between it that allows us to not get that message that says turn off your AC if it's hot out. But it's so difficult to have these conversations sometimes because I think there's a lack of transparency around what we're actually doing with it.
There's
And
confusion too, Matt,
yeah,
because the $30,000 to put solar on my roof on a 20-year-old house, and the electric rates, it doesn't make sense. The credit is gone, the tax credit, and
sure.
the rates are going down. I would have to 17 years to pay it back.
Sure. Yeah. No,
That's
the benefit too, the utilities I think have an opportunity to step in and have a role here. So again, we work with utilities all the time through ChargeWay. And one of the hurdles they have is that on one hand, they are working heavily to basically decarbonize the grid wherever their service area is. And they have to go through efforts of that. If they're shutting down a coal-fired power plant, what are they doing to offset that with a reliable renewable, if it's possible? I think one of the best studies that's been done was by the Union of Concerned Scientists when it comes down to, okay, what is the actual equivalent mile per gallon a gas car would need to get to be as clean as an electric vehicle in a given area of the United States? And throughout the US, basically, if you switch to an electric car and even use the existing grid, it is cleaner, but it still gets back to the energy production that you can rely upon. And I think that's where there's just a big, big need for a better way to address, as you mentioned, Craig. Like if someone says, I want to add solar to my house, don't make it overly expensive. If there's ways we can do tax credits, make it more clear and simple. And areas where they can really leverage it in places where it's sunny more than Portland, Oregon,
That's
that we
step
can
one.
really, yeah,
Step two is cleaning the process of building these cars. You got to go 80,000 miles before you offset the pollution and the carbon footprint of building the car. So a lot of people are owning their cars, their gas cars, for about 11 years right now, right? I don't
Mhm.
see people hanging on to their Tesla for 11 years yet, but we'll
That,
get there.
well, most of them haven't even been on the road for 11
I know
years.
Right.
that. I know that, but
No,
Yeah, and you
I
see, and
think, yeah,
go ahead.
good.
No, I've seen that kind of movement right now. I know Steph Papadakis just posted something about buying old cars, and that is kind of a movement right now. Not obviously, hot rods and, obviously vehicles of prestige, just kind of recalibrating vehicles and making them and last longer. So absolutely to your point of longevity of a vehicle.
But here it comes down to this: make me a sexy looking car. I can refill it in 5 minutes, okay? And I don't have to worry about range anxiety and stopping at Baker for 4 hours in a line to complete my trip to get Las Vegas. As soon as that happens, I'll be shopping. But right now, what I'm Gonna,
Cool, Craig. It happened because that's not the norm. Let's also be clear about that's not the norm. So I mean,
that's true.
I've driven my Tesla from Portland to Chicago back through North Dakota using fast chargers, and it worked with no problem. So
Okay.
this gets back to what is actually happening. And so, for example, at your place, how many cars do you have parked in your garage right now at your house? I'm just curious. Both on
Two
the
car,
fact that it's two cars.
two cars. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, and in where you park your car at night, this is the thing: is if you have a place where you can actually park your car at night, 50% of the U.S. has that option. 95% of your fill-ups will be at home. That's just the facts. That's how an EV
Yeah.
works. And so, at the other 5% for that road trip, going to Vegas and going through Baker, for example,
Mhm.
if you have a fast charging station that is level 7, for example, if we're referring to ChargeWay power levels, a level 7 charger that has 40 chargers there, you're not having the issue of pulling up and there's 4 chargers in a line of 40 cars. It's the opposite of that. You actually have the option to fill up, and level 7 can get you back on the road in 15 to 20 minutes. So that's where if you're driving for an hour and a half, you stop and grab a burger, get back in your car, and you're on your way. It doesn't offset your life in a way that feels weird,
Right.
right? But
Because
if you hear the
when you
yeah, go
stop
ahead.
anyway, you're going to go to the bathroom, right? So
Sure, yeah.
that's
But
not
if you
terrible. That's
but
not
if you hear
terrible.
the horror stories of just like, yeah, I pulled up and I was in a line of 14 cars, and then what was the issue? There was only 4 chargers at that location. Those 4 chargers from that network happened to have an agreement with 10 automakers to offer free fast charging for the first 3 years of your car. It's like, yeah, you're creating chaos. So
Yes.
Yeah.
this is where I think that there's on one hand you see articles that come out from various news outlets that say this was a nightmare experience, and this is where those who are in positions of influence in the EV industry need to do a far better job of explaining the practical realities of how electricity as a fuel works, so that the common narrative doesn't turn into what Craig just said, which is if I go on a road trip, I got to wait for 2 hours to fill up.
You know
That's a
what?
joke.
Have Tesla send me a car, and I'll drive it to Las Vegas, and I will give them everything they already know, and tell everybody else, you know what? This isn't half bad. I might like this.
Yep.
Well, the cool thing is that's the reason why we have automakers like General Motors and Ford and others switching to using Tesla's connector type, is because they finally and essentially it's almost like a waving of the white flag. Is they said we
Absolutely.
build cars. That's the thing. Is Craig, your point earlier, could Tesla improve their build quality? Oh yeah, like they have issues as it relates to quality of the structure of the car. But if you get to what an EV is under the skin, which is the battery and the software, that's where they shine. And then they
It's
said,
back to your RC car point, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about the body. You want a carbon fiber body with the best batteries, the best motor, right?
absolutely right.
That, but just change the shell. Let's just, so here we go with a
Well,
modular car,
I rode in
and
a
also
Tesla on the way to the airport. LAX, this guy, Jamaica guy, his name was Rasheen. I said, "Tell me all the bad, tell me all the good." And the bad was like this,
there you go.
okay? Just sometimes inconveniences to charge, sometimes, but he does it at home. But he just moved into a house before he was in an apartment, and it was really hard to do it because he had parked in a carport. So
yep,
that's an issue. Okay, and that's unique. I understand that. But his car was run fine and smooth. You've been in those cars, you would know what they're all about. I don't have to tell you about it. And there's sometimes there are quality issues, but you can say that about any manufacturer,
yeah.
more or less.
Yeah,
I think that, well,
yeah,
the evidence too is like even GM's announcements this week about the fact they're pushing out their projections of when they're going to be producing high volume electric cars. And a big thing it comes back to is they can build cars all day. The battery and the software, when it comes to that, that is really the linchpin of making a successful EV on the road. But then you have to couple that with fast charging that's reliable. It's
True.
really those 4 pieces. And I think that the legacy auto brands, I'd love to see Tesla technology inside of an Audi.
Sure.
You know,
Do you
I mean,
remember?
yeah.
Are you old enough to remember VHS and Beta?
Come on, Craig.
Oh, look,
But I, I pre
Matt's a happily married man. Why you hitting on him like this?
yeah, I'm gonna say
I know he looks younger than both of us, but we all got gray hair. Okay.
Yeah.
pushing
Okay.
you to
So
see it. I
anyway,
mean,
but
but
I said that at the beginning with the start. I said if you're going to have 12 different sockets and on this is never going to work.
And that
oh God, yeah.
and you said that going to that universal plug. I mean, that's
Mhm.
right now. Apple was proprietary with the Lightning. Nope, they waved the white flag.
Yep.
USB-C. Thank
Yep.
goodness. Gosh, like, oh, green texter. I don't trust you. I don't listen to broke. I'm joking. If Apple as opposed to Google, but I think that is like you say, waving the white flag, surrendering to, hey, let's all get on the same page. Rising tide lifts all ships,
That's right.
and And no news is good news, right? So
Mhm.
back to Craig, it's easy to say like, oh, I've heard this, my friend said, but when you live that lifestyle like Matt does, it is a game changer. And Miss Go Electric just had a great point. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of doing things and kind of relearning. If you're into golf, it's like changing putters. You need to change this or driving a different car. Like, my wife had a Volkswagen, now she's in a BMW. I drove a all new 2024 Sequoia TRD Pro, and I drive a Tundra. It was a totally different vehicle, and I was like hybrid turbo V6. Thing was fast, bro. Like this thing
Yeah.
moved. So it's just a different way of learning, even
Yeah.
with ice. So, but it had like, I mean, shoot, it got like 300 miles per the tank. I was like, wow, this thing
That's
guzzles
fine.
gas.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
but again, it's just a different way of learning, Craig. And I think that we're conditioned, we're on that cusp of, as you say, beta, VHS, and that was like if you even look at music and CDs, that was Sony, right? Like
Right.
that's people saying, hey, we're going to adopt this. They tried mini disc, but CD became the norm, right? Everybody had mini disc changers in their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say one thing that comes up all the time on the beta VHS, conversation as an example is the one thing that always strikes me is why people I think are still a little bit nervous about EVs is at the end of the day, we can talk about technologies that competed and then one of them finally won out, whether it's connector types for charging, etc. But at the end of the day, like a VHS player or a Betamax player wouldn't strand your ass in the middle of nowhere if you didn't know how to
Right.
use it.
But
Like
you're stranded when you have 500 tapes, and now they're not selling any more VHS. Right, so
But
here we
like,
are.
but it's like you're dealing with that in your living room. It's like I'll get rid of that box one day, right?
Right.
But I think people's genuine fear, and Craig, as you're pointing out, this is a different conversation. A car is an extension of who you are, whether it's
Yep.
personality or however you want to frame it. But it is your window into the world, and
Yep.
so we're talking about how you trust a car. And the beauty of it is once you have an EV and you drive an EV and you realize, okay, two pedals, the right one makes it go, left one makes it stop, it steers, you realize it is about that fuel experience. And then based on lifestyle, like Lacey, Let's Go Electric was mentioning to you, Jarod, it is about lifestyle. But then industry needs to appreciate lifestyle. We can't pretend that we can market these vehicles and charging to everyone the same way because if Craig, for his two cars he has in his garage, he swaps one of those out with a Tesla Model S Plaid, a Lucid Sapphire, whatever he ends up loving for performance and luxury, then he can fill up at home 95% of the time with that car.
The
But
other thing is, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, lastly, just someone who isn't Craig that has to go find their fuel, different experience. That
Right.
person that drove you to the airport, you mentioned, Craig, it's like, yeah, I got an apartment and I got to go find my fuel. Well, you don't want to go find your fuel and have yourself wait for 4 or 5, 10 hours. You want it to be fast, unless you have time to dwell for something like a movie or something else. So that's the understanding the industry needs to appreciate about lifestyle.
You know what
Craig's
I'm
going to
gonna?
talk about pedals. Watch this. Save the manuals. Watch this.
No.
I
Close.
thought he was going to say, because you
Somebody
said
already
two
has a
pedals, he's
tape
going to be like,
gearbox.
where's the third?
Okay.
Yeah, where's the third?
Okay. Here's another thing. I am going to miss going down onto my computer and start buying shit I don't need to try and impress people I don't know. And
That's
so,
a whole nother conversation. That's the different podcast,
but
bro.
that's part
Go
of
ahead
the
and lie down.
fun.
Tell me tell me about your parents. Tell me about your childhood.
Show me
This
where you got touched on the
Yeah,
stalls.
no. Again, different podcast. Welcome to Electrify Expo, where we break down Craig Lieberman's childhood issues and how that applies to his automotive game.
But
Uh,
I fear if I put on stuff on the car that doesn't do anything for performance, I'm going to be called a racer. And I've already gone through my racer
yep,
lifestyle back 20 years ago, trying to get away from it.
No, that's a great point though, because back in the day, you go to
absolutely.
hot import nights or show off or whatever it was. If someone popped their hood and it looked like it was like dried leaves in there, it's like, bro,
Right.
like nice. I love your 19s and your 10-inch rotors you have behind them. Like, come
Right.
on, do something better for yourself. No, I think that's interesting because at the end of the day, what makes the EV performance different? I will say back when Model S first came out, Saleen did a Saleen Model
I saw
S,
that.
and they tuned the electric motor. That was like the first thing they did. Is they said when we floor this thing, we want you to hear it, and we want to see exactly what we can do to make it different. But the prowess of mechanical engineering is now switching to electrical engineering and computer software. It's a fully different way of understanding how you tune. I mean,
Sure.
that's why companies like AEM, they're kind of like naturally floating right in, right? Because they're like, hey, we've been doing electronics forever. This is our bread and butter. So
No cold air intakes.
Iceman
I mean,
engine.
Yeah,
They're
that
all,
was,
remember Iceman, or the
oh,
one that
yeah,
had the one that looked like an intercooler out front.
right.
And back to the therapy session, Craig. Absolutely, we were called ricers. That, rice rockets, and that's not a slanders thing. It's just it is what it is. And that was the no replacement for displacement. I
Mhm.
remember when back to
yeah,
Steph Papadakis quoting
Mhm.
and seeing his journey and the imports going to NHRA. That was a
yep,
generation, and that was
Mhm.
wow. Look at this horsepower they're making, and that's where BC Moto, BC has done such a good job of educating one himself, two educating other people, and progressing it. So he's taking all of the steps of you know what is it, admittance, what's like all of the process, right,
have a
with
Acceptance,
problem.
acceptance.
accepting, right, all these things. So that we're going through therapy here, Craig, and I think this is why people are listening. We're sinking them in. We're clickbaiting them with the car curator of Fast and Furious, and that's part of what you do, not all of what you do. And now again with the EV conversation, it's now education for people that are like, oh, cool, Fast and Furious. What does this have to do with EV?
Yeah,
A lot,
It's
kind of
the
a lot.
future.
yep,
It's the future, and again, just looking at what throttle.com did of building that Supra and how iconic, and
Mhm.
Troy Lee did the graphics, or
Yep, yep.
DJ Aoki's sister is, driving the S2000 with that, isn't I think that's Noah, art by Noah, the airbrushing on the
Yep,
side,
that's
like
the guy.
just, all these things contribute to it. And like I said, I started off by saying I don't like any. I know all of it.
I was about to
It's
say you just rattled off some very detailed pieces of these
Very, very
movies.
detailed.
well, and again, yeah, Robert Wilson, obviously Modern Image, and Scott from Wings West, and
Yes.
obviously the
Scotty,
Jetta.
wow, yeah.
Yeah, I know it all, bro. But when the car starts flying, I'm out. But that is also EV. When John Cena flew off,
The
Yeah,
that was
right.
Fiero,
Pistons.
the
There you go,
Fiero
full
into
circle.
space.
And that's your EV right there. So you didn't know it, Craig, but you curated this.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me. Not at
It
all.
Again,
was
you
The
you.
can do
truth
as much.
is, the guys who are running a net for the cars, they're typical picture car guys. They're older white guys, my age or older, and they all got the carburetors, big blocks, and all that kind of stuff. So you're not going to see another tuner in there with graphics on it ever again, unless they go backwards, which
But the
probably
ice
Well,
charger was cool. My man Sean Smith
yeah,
created the ice charger, which was dope, right? And I
one of
and I
my
know, like,
favorites.
and the new one with El Camino and all that stuff. Like, I think there is some homage cars that, my wife, she works for Weld Wheels, so I know Weld is involved in that.
Mhm.
So it just all those things. But I love this conversation, Matt, and I know you do too, because this is there's a global shift of when Fast and Furious came out, and
yeah,
education. And like I said, it makes the job easier to explain. This conversation right here is going to be able to educate people and make it easier to explain. And
sure,
I
yeah,
love how you play it, and you guys are on either side of my screen right now. I don't know how it's displaying, but
yeah.
it's contrarian, and this is healthy because, like you say, oh, my friend, yeah, we need to get, Craig a Tesla or some sort of EV or whatever tickles his fancy and is an embodiment of his personality. When
Mhm.
Priuses came out, they look like doorstops, and now they're looking pretty dang
They look
cool,
fantastic.
New
right?
Prius is badass. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
can I ask you a serious question? Uh,
No.
one thing I seem to notice with the Prius, my dad had a Prius. He was born on Pearl Harbor. He hated Japanese everything until he drove the Prius. Changed his life. Old school New Yorker. Think Tony Soprano. Okay? He had that Prius. Bought it the first year. Kept it till he died.
Wow.
So, and he was a
Wow.
stubborn guy. For me, when I see Priuses on the road back in the day, everybody's going 5 miles an hour, right? And they're in the fast lane doing 20 under, right? Now you pull up on a light, the Tesla is going to be the first person out of the blocks and across the. So if I come up on one sitting at a stoplight, I follow that guy because I know he's going to be gone.
Oh, that guy's gonna go. Yeah. Well,
Right?
it's funny.
Yeah.
Am I being stereotypical?
No, demographically speaking, I mean, let's be honest. Like the first EV that was mass produced here in North America or offered as a mass production car, the Nissan Leaf, aesthetically, who was that car built for? It was not built for a mass
Blind
market
people.
audience. Well, right. It was built for people they brought in focus groups of who's going to buy this car, and these people weren't looking for an aesthetic, exciting taste. They had a completely different interest, and so we had these cars that were not aesthetically exciting, Prius included, and the type of people buying them were just hyper miling, doing 5 under the speed limit, etc. but we're graduating into that world of no,
Mhm.
these actually can't, to Tesla's credit, it's kind of changing the dynamic of an electric car doesn't have to be boring. It can be fun and exciting and aesthetically cool. And now we have other brands taking their heritage of great design, like it's seeing an e-tron GT when I was in Berlin, and you get behind that thing, you go, dude, the stance on that thing is unreal. Like
Mhm.
the width of everything, just everything they did about the design of it is great. That's what we're getting to finally. And then you marry that to the fact that, oh yeah, by the way, it does 0 to 60 in about 3.5 seconds
But the
because
cars
it's
will keep
electric.
it be looking better because the batteries are already at the bottom, right? So this car is going to be lower and sleeker. That's the way it is,
Yeah.
unless they're SUVs. But I'm looking forward to that. We're very early now, right now. Wait 10
Yeah.
years. There's going to be some badass cars on the road.
Well, Matt, you talked about, the EV, the Tesla Soul with an Audi body, and I think we can all agree that Audi does such a good job OE out of the gate. Their lines, their design, their cues, badging. It's more design heavy than a lot of the OE manufacturers. Let's just call it what it is. 1 year anniversary of Electricana, RIP Ken Block. I mean, tearing up Las
Oh,
Vegas in
yeah,
that
that's right. Yeah.
absolutely unobtainium car. That, like, looking at photos of Derek Dauncey and B More and Hobo, just all these guys posting up photos and videos of Electricana, and that was totally left field. I don't think anybody expected that, because you look at
Yeah.
what Ken Block has done previously of vehicles. He was a huge rally fan even before he started Gymkhana and left DC Shoes. I've known Ken for a long time and know his family now intimately and love them. But for him to just go this total pivot of Hoonicorn, Hoona truck, leaves Ford, and does Electricana, unbelievable. And that and
Yeah.
that's another conversation that not a lot of people bring up, just because you're like, oh, it's just a car ripping around. But he was like, that experience was kind of wild. It was just a totally different sensation. But look at him tap into the heritage of Audi and having, like, the old, Group B rally cars in there, or the drivers,
Mhm.
if it's Thomas, like, I mean, all of that. I think that's cool.
Well, and the heritage we're talking about too of some of these names and people that made industry evolve as we've seen in the last quarter century is
Yeah.
those names and those players. And Craig, you're in this mix of people that had a major influence in what we've seen over the last decades. Is as those people pivot and show that, hey, I do see where this fits. I see where performance can be enhanced through electrification. I can see how we can have aesthetically beautiful and cool cars because of how the design function works of having the weight of the vehicle low at the battery pack. That as Craig, as you mentioned, we're at the beginning stages of this evolution right now. It seems like it's going fast for those of us who's been, maybe like not paying attention, but for some of us, it's kind of like, well, we're still at the beginning though. There's a lot to
Right.
unpack here. And the technology is only going to continue to improve. I'm still curious to see how we're going to go with, as you mentioned, SUVs and trucks. I think we're still very early on those vehicles. I think that plug-in hybrid for a truck or an SUV still makes far more sense than trying to put a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack into a
Yeah.
9,000 pound
Pound,
vehicle.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Be able to
duh.
500
That
pounds.
Humvee is insane, right? Like
Yeah.
the Hummer.
I
There are bridges in this country that are like, please don't, I can't take you.
I would like to work with a manufacturer to help them create a soundtrack for their cars because remember everybody claimed when B10s were out of Formula One and all that kind of stuff. If they
Yeah.
can do something for the performance variants of any one of their cars, a Tesla or whatever, and you can turn it on and off and all that kind of stuff, I think more people would be cool with it. But and then they start making these sport runabouts, like imagine like a Miata type of car, smaller, and it has good pickup, 0 to
Mm.
60 in 4 seconds or something like that, affordable, that kind of thing, and to get them into it at an early age. A lot of kids now are not even getting
Yeah.
driver's licenses. If they drive one of those things, game changer, game changer.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
look at the OG Tesla. It was a Lotus,
Yeah,
so that
Yep.
you're
I
getting
saw
back
that
to
car.
kind of the core and the
I
concept
was there.
of, right? But he said, to change that car into electric, it took so much work. And this is
Oh.
way ahead of its time, right? And now it's like,
Yeah.
so question for you, Craig. Again, you talk about this soundtrack, that you're a sensory guy. Aesthetically, you want to see it. you want to smell it. I mean, we all know that BMW, that old BMW smell, the Porsche smell, even just new car smell. How can you encapsulate a time? You never can. Black ice. I'm joking. The black forest. But what is the sound? Because you're saying don't duplicate something else. You have an opportunity. I see you scratching your head there.
To create a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Right. What is it? Like off the top of your head, Craig? Like what do you want to hear?
What do I want to hear? I want to hear sound that's guttural, right? You go to those lower frequencies, and then as the engine goes up, it gets to the higher frequency. Like, because that makes sense. Because the ear is trained to see it that way or hear it that way. You start up something, whatever that is, and using the sound effects in Fast and Furious. You know what they use? Rocket engines, lions, tigers, bears, diesel engines, all kind of stuff.
Oh, I love it.
No, but this is, even if an EV is idling, like right now there's the, it's got to make a sound. It's like, okay, what sound? You could get creative with that sound.
Sure.
You could make it sound like an EV is sitting at a stoplight with it like an electric idling. You could do it. Yeah.
Yep. I would think I would play a track from 2 Live Crew.
1 and 1.
That's not what I was thinking about. Go a little.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's again, family show. Whales. Ooh, like I'm joking.
Well, maybe not that.
Yeah. Let's get weird.
Why not?
But again, Tesla has fun with it. They're making the car fart. You can play Super Mario Kart in your car. These are the things that, I have a 17 or 9-year-old, and my 9-year-old's better at driving games than a 17-year-old, and my 17-year-old's actually driving. We got him a Toyota Corolla. EV's just not our bag. We probably could have gone, but as financially, all those things. It just, back to your point, Matt, you do such a good job of kind of, again, being contrarian in a beautiful way of saying this can fit in your lifestyle. Don't trust everything you hear. Do it yourself, and Craig, you come from that mindset. You're describing your dad and him having a bit of chip on his shoulder about Japan. My grandpa fought in World War II, and he was shot down and was a POW in Germany. But he loves Toyotas. He passed away a few years ago, but a fighter pilot fighting in World War II. I mean, it's relearning, unthinking, repositioning, and applying the technology that you have accessibility to and can afford. Obviously, like you said, if you can apply it, like you said, you got to live in your house for 18 years to apply, energy, and as Matt is 60% off the grid, that is great, but it's application of doing it now.
I was a big muscle car guy, like back in the 80s and 90s, and then I got into JDMs and never went back.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, and if you look at what happened in Tokyo this week, is Honda was showing off what's the vision they have for what they're going to do with their vehicles, and all of a sudden we see an all-electric Prelude as one of their featured vehicles, and I thought, now there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I want
moving in the right direction.
Yeah, bring some of these vehicles back that are accessible and attainable for people that don't have to walk in and say, I got to drop 35, 40K on some thing that's big. It's like, what happened to still having a vehicle that's practical for who you are at the time that doesn't include having a need for a third row? And something like a Prelude would be great.
Paying attention. Lucid, I like it. There's nice. Hyundai's doing a great job. Kia's doing a great job. Audi's doing a great job. And I'm paying attention. I see these cars on the road every day. I said they're getting better. They're getting better and better and better. And keep going. We're doing it.
And to their credit, I mean, if you think back 5 years ago, some of the begging conversations were happening for people inside of the EV bubble that were just wanting to see more options, wanting to see something better. And if you just then take what's happened in the last 5 years and you think about vehicle options on the road, combined with how the technology has advanced for both battery, energy density, range of driving, and fast charging capability, it's wild. It's wild. Now, that's for people who have been in the mix. People that are just being freshly exposed to this, I mean, that's why things like this podcast and why things like Electrify Expo are so great. It's because you get that, you read that one story, you have that one friend, and then you show up. And the amount of times I've had conversations with people in person at events like Electrify Expo and others that just say, I had no idea. Like this is, and I'm a car guy and I had no idea. That's pretty impressive for how fast it's gone. And we're only at the beginning. That's still what's crazy.
Move faster now.
Yeah. I'm really excited about battery technology that way. So
Yeah. And again, Craig, we love having you on here, and thank you so much for all that you've done for everything, Matt. I think we should wrap it up because I think it's just really cool. It's great food for thought. We want to make it digestible. We want to educate people, and just in doses.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the big bang or big woo woo. It's going to be the it's going to be this slow digestible
Right.
thing. And again, it is a total mind shift. So Craig, did we help kind of ease the pain again, not just your therapy about your
Yeah.
childhood, but your
yeah,
I'm
right.
feeling
relationship
better,
with
but I'm going to
with Evie.
graduate. I will graduate my studies when I go to your Electrify Expo in Los Angeles. I missed it this year because I got COVID.
Ah,
No.
ah.
Hey, you can always
Well,
come to
It's the
Austin.
second
It's in a
time.
couple
yeah,
of weeks.
but you're in Southern California, so Long Beach, we'll be there. We'll high five and handshake, and SEMA show is cracking, Electrify Expo, all these things. Again, it's really great to see just this shift, and including you, Craig, and thank you again for all that you do. And I'd have to say, Gymkhana 1 is, or sorry, not Gymkhana 1, but Fast and Furious 1 is my favorite, just because it's iconic.
That's still my fave, man. It's the original. But again, I grew up in Lancaster, Palmdale, and the
Yep.
Yeah,
moment he said, "You want to know what this ran in Palmdale?" and everybody in the theater lost their minds
Uh,
because Palmdale never been mentioned in a movie ever. I was like,
right.
"All right,
What's your favorite one, Craig?
uh,
Out of
from an
yeah,
insider's expectation, I thought Fast and Furious one was going to be trash because I saw it before it was completely edited. But same thing, I sat in the theater on the first night, and everybody got up on Honda's hijacked the tractors. I've never seen that ever. I was in a theater in Star Wars in 1977. Nobody got out of the seats. I said, "Oh my God, this thing is going to be huge."
Yep.
oh
Yep.
yeah."
So that's
Yeah. And again, all the, and like you said, you've played such a major role in these designs and all these certain people, and including just the stunt drivers. I'm so proud of all my drift friends of
yeah.
now progressing,
Yeah, yeah.
Reese
Tanner,
Mill and
Sammy,
Tanner.
everybody.
Yeah. All,
Yeah.
now progressing into Alex Pfeiffer and, Matt Powers, just all these dudes that have competed in Formula Drift over the years. So
Yeah.
super proud of them. So, Matt, anything in closing for, Mr. Lieberman?
No, I think we got to get him a Tesla that he can take on a road trip. I mean, that's all. That's the takeaway. He said, "Give me that car. Let me do that road trip to Vegas and come on back. We got to figure out how to
Water
make that
them
happen."
with cameras.
Yeah,
All
Let's do it.
my GoPros.
let's do it. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Let's do
Yep.
it.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. Of course, just such a wealth of knowledge and passion, and just charge way. And Matt, thank you so much. And of course, thank you so much, Craig Lieberman, for all that you do in the automotive space and continue to again progress. Where and what do you want to kind of plug? This is your shameless plug for more
Uh,
people.
Instagram, Craig Lieberman _42, or YouTube, Craig Lieberman.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Craig. And again,
Thanks for great to
we'll
see
get
you,
you.
Matt. You look you're the same, but with spikier hair.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is probably. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm showing some silver. Some
That's
silver
okay.
fox.
That's quite all right.
I'm getting there.
We're lucky to have her at this age.
Exactly.
All
Well,
right,
tell
guys. Thank you
BJ
so
I
much.
said hello.
Yep, will do.
All
Will
right,
do.
guys.
Yeah. Well, you just did. BJ's listening in, and
Oh, there.
again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you at Electrify Expo Austin, or we'll see you online, and we'll see you another time. Thank you so much for joining us here,
Can't
Mr.
wait, guys.
Lieberman.
Thanks for your
Yep.
time.
Yeah, of course.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV, and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.